ladies and gentlemen. This is Frank Prattle here on whatever radio station we're broadcasting out of today, Neighborhood Public Radio.
We find there's nothing more natural than a person hanging from your ceiling.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, like then you get into the suspension bondage, which is definitely the kinkier side, I would think.
And people always want to do, like, the funny thing is that people come to us, they want to do suspension first. Let's say the first. Oh, totally. Like, sometimes they don't want to learn anything else, because that's like you can always tell where someone's coming from when they want to learn suspension, because suspension is like the performance end of things.
Right.
It's kind of the look how cool I am.
Right.
And we kind of encourage people to keep it on the ground for a while, just learn the basics, and then you sort of build up to suspensions.
I mean, do you guys do a lot of suspension?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, you can see a lot of our examples of our suspensions on our website at knottyboys.com. Go to our gallery, and you can see some of our performances. But the main thing that characterizes our suspension is that everything pivots on the hips, and it enables a dynamic suspension. Rather than having someone hanging in one position, you can actually tilt their head down or tilt their head up, spin them around, open their legs. It provides complete accessibility.
Very fuckable positions. The fuckability factor.
Can we say that on the radio?
If you have to ask if you can say it, you can't say it.
The fuckability factor is pretty high. Like most of our, I'm just going to go and say it. But the fuckability factor is huge. It's what am I supposed to say?
I mean, what is the fuckability scale? Like, it's definitely not one.
Exactly. Fuckability scale is something that I've been trying to incorporate into standards and practices for many years now. We have all these scales of like lengths and all these scales of sound, or decibels and what have you.
Fuckability
is you take like a Brigitte Bardot on one end, you stretch it to. No, I'm just joking.
Are we cutting too close to the bone there?
Oh no. I'll just be back.
All the ties basically are you maintain exposure, so you can be fucked. I mean, we're teaching couples,
right?
And so our idea is that people are going to be engaging in sex. I mean, we're not suggesting this is going to happen in like a public. It could actually. It depends on what night it is. Wednesday night, I call that. But basically, we're teaching couples in the workshop, so we do show them how to maintain exposability, so that that someone feels restrained, exposed, and fuckable. Like there's something that washes over the face of your partner when they're in a position where they look up and they see someone they trust and someone they love and someone they care about to fuck them in half. And that is a great, powerful, feeling. It really does.
What's washing over their face?
I will wash over their face if things work out correctly. But, Dan can wash over your face.
There's
not that crude. I apologize.
I'll bring my washcloth. There's been a lot of research into wondering why it is that people are into being tied up. And there are a couple of reasons. I mean, for one, a lot of people have real guilty issues, and if you have your power of participating taken away from you, and then it somehow frees you from the not only the guilt of engaging in this act because you're being taken, and so you can relax and you have that sort of it kind of allows your primitive religious psyche to let go of that inhibition. The other aspect is that when you are there's something called the norm of reciprocity, and when someone is trying to please you, a lot of people are distracted by the fact that they want to please the other person too. But when you're tied up, you are liberated from having to please the other person. You can just sit back and take the pleasure that someone is inflicting upon you.
Yeah, and if you're lazy, it's awesome. Because like if you don't want to do anything, just have your partner tie you up, and then you have no choice. You're like, I would have so reciprocated, but I was tied up. What was I supposed to do? And so, like, I'm not suggesting you should do that. But no, it's actually a Margaret Cho joke. She used to say that I used to think I was a bottom, and then I just realized later in life that I was just lazy. And I really like that. But really, it is true. You let go. It's tough. It's tough for certain people to be tied down. And I think there's a lot of power in letting go. There's a lot of power in being restrained. Because even me, I have my issues around it. It takes me a time. I switch. And And so it takes me time to sort of warm up with a partner to feel comfortable enough to allow myself to be tied up. There's a lot of letting go. There's a lot of sort of psychological babble that goes on in our heads about having control and being, on top of the circumstances. I mean, to go back to my origin story, way back when I was bitten by a radioactive spider.
I thought it was.
And I got superpowers.
It struck me in the head, and I learned how to tie people.
Yeah, I got superpowers and cancer.
Yeah, when I was really young, the reason why I engaged in rope bondage was because it slowed things down. I was so freaked out about sex, and I was trying to rectify my desire to engage with people, but scared about the potential for things to move too fast or move too, in a strange direction. And so the biggest, the way to cure all that was, hey, let me tie you up, and then I can explore the body, take my time, keep things nice and comfortable at a pace that I can control. And, that developed into a skill set that ultimately now becomes a source of livelihood and income. But it's interesting how it all begins. It's psychological more than it is sensual at times.
I definitely wanted to ask you guys, as we're kind of nearing the end here, is that, let's say, what would you recommend to somebody who's fresh, who's on the street, definitely a newbie, and who's had fantasies about rope bondage, but is too scared? I mean, obviously, that's definitely a factor out there. I think that they're like, it sounds neat, and then they, go masturbate, what have you, but then they can't really pony up to it. What would you recommend for them to get into rope bondage?
No, it depends on the person. I'm not, for me personally, and this is a strange dynamic, and I'm not trying to avoid the question, but in all honesty, sometimes that's good enough. Like, sometimes people just want to have this strange little weirdness around it, sneak off to their bedroom and masturbate. And that's okay. What we're here for is we're a safe place for people to come to when they make that decision that they want to step into a social exchange with another person. And so the only thing I would say is that we're an option. We're here. We teach workshops, knottyboys.com. Check us out when you're ready to take the next step and leave your bedroom.
Yeah, there's also a lot of other options, too. We live in a great city where if there's anything you want to learn how to do, particularly if it's related to consensual sexuality and imagination that way, there are people who can teach it to you. We're not the only people in the Bay Area that teach rope bondage or other types of bondage. And there's all sorts of ways that you can explore that. Just doing a search on the internet and doing workshops and BDSM, and you'll come up with all sorts of resources to add. And we view bondage as simply another way to add creativity to your BDSM play or your sex life. It's just another part of the spectrum that you can wow your partner with.
Yeah, it's not the only thing. It's just one of many. And just to add to that, if someone is really increasingly timid, again, we have a book coming out later this year. Two Knotty Boys Showing You the Ropes. There's other colleagues. Bridget Harrington has a book coming out soon. Another local colleague, Shanta Rose.
Where can people get this book?
Bridget's book is, I think, self-published, so you'd have to go online and type in Bridget Harrington.
And what about your
our book will be in stores. You'll be able to go to Good Vibrations and Barnes and Nobles.
Barnes and Noble?
Yeah, pretty much. That's
the
what
big
they're doing.
boys.
Because we tailored the book so that it was very appeasable to a lay public.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fetish focused. It's just about tying your partner, and we did it in a very tasteful way. So we're getting a lot of good positive feedback, and it looks like it's going to be in regular stores. It's kind of cool.
Great news.
It is very good news. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys both very much for being on the air. This is Dan and JD on Frank Prattle, and they are Two Knotty Boys.